What's the greatest wrestling game from the Xbox 360 generation? Maybe it's SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, or maybe even WWE 2K14. If you said any of those, you're wrong. It's actually WWE 13. SVR 07 and 2K14 are great games though. Released in 2012, WWE 13 was, at least from what I remember, the most hyped up wrestling game of all time. They went all out on the marketing for this game, from the awesome cover reveal on Raw with John Laurinaitis and CM Punk, to even having Stone Cold Steve Austin and CM Punk beefing just for the sake of promoting this game. The build up to this game's release was just absolutely insane, and it really set the tone for what this game was going to be like. This game just had so many awesome bits to it that even to this day still make it a blast to go back and play. The Attitude Era mode, the awesome gameplay, and man, that soundtrack was just so damn good. Also, never forget that one Rey Mysterio tweet from when the game came out. Enough about the backstory of this game though. Without further ado, let's dive into WWE 13 and find out what made it so great. First of all, we can't talk about what made this game great without at least mentioning this cover art. This is the type of game cover art that I could see myself getting as a poster because it's just absolutely gorgeous. With CM Punk on the cover and the red X in the background, it just looks so clean. It's definitely the most unique wrestling game cover we've ever gotten. That even extends to the main menu too. I really love the look of this menu with CM Punk on the left side, as well as just the gray and red color of everything. It just lets you know right off the bat that this is not your average wrestling game. In fact, the tagline for this game was "Live the Revolution," of course referring to the Attitude Era. This wasn't a video game, it was a revolution. No, I'm not talking about you, get the fuck out of here. The gameplay of WWE 13 is absolutely perfect, and while I do think it's ever so slightly slower than 2K14's gameplay, it's still not as slow as 2K15 on next gen, which is good. You're of course still able to do crazy stuff like do springboard moves all over the place, German suplex your opponent onto the steel steps, as well as put your opponent through flaming tables. You can even give yourself infinite finishers and just wild out if you want. You can even run a 40-man Royal Rumble match, which is something you can't even do in the new games. Something that I love about not just WWE 13, but WWE 12 and 2K14 as well, is that they nailed the simulation and arcade style gameplay. They managed to blend both together to create an awesome gameplay experience. This game was fun because you could transition from grapple to grapple and keep matches moving at a pretty fast pace. Matches never had any feeling of slowness to them in this game. The weapon physics in this game were also on a whole other level when compared to what we have now in modern wrestling games. Sure, I had fun with using weapons in 2K24, but in this game, you can do whatever the hell you want. Weapons can be placed anywhere and everywhere, which allows for stuff like this to happen. They even added Sin Cara's shitty match lighting into the game for when you play as him. THQ and Yuke's went hard when creating the gameplay for this game and made it fun as hell. I've said this before in my last gen 2K15 video, as well as my 2K14 video, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm repeating myself, but there's no other way to describe it. If you're a fan of the simulation style gameplay, you're able to have your realistic feeling matches if you want, or if you're into the arcade style gameplay, this game offers that as well. Since I've talked about the gameplay a bit, I want to go ahead and talk about the visuals, because while its graphics don't look all that great by today's standards, I still think the game looks pretty good. All the arenas, entrances, everything in this game still looks pretty alright. I mean, somehow Edge looked better in this game than he did in 2K20. Really, when it comes to the visuals and presentation of this game though, it's all about the little things. The way the blood drips onto the mat, the different camera cuts during big moves, all these things really make a big difference and really add to the fun of the game. Now moving on to the arena selection. The arena selection in this game was nuts. This game honestly had a pretty great selection when it came to Attitude Era arenas such as WrestleMania 15, Rock Bottom, 2 Raw is War arenas, and many more. I still to this day don't think there's been a WWE game with more playable Attitude Era arenas than WWE 13. Well, besides WWE 2K16 of course. Now talking about the roster, I have to say this roster is nothing short of amazing. Combined with the modern superstars and the Attitude Era superstars in this game, there were nearly 100 playable superstars featured on the roster of this game. This game spoiled us with just how many legends were featured in this game. Stone Cold, Eddie Guerrero, all three faces of Mick Foley, as well as many other legends. WWE 13 has the perfect roster in my opinion. You just have so many superstars to choose from, and I love it because it adds a lot of variety. Having all these Attitude Era superstars playable in a modern WWE game on Xbox 360 was insane at the time, and while it's not really anything special now, you still gotta admit it was pretty big back then. Moving on to the match types, WWE 13 had them in spades. Inferno, Championship Scramble, Special Guest Referee, King of the Ring, everything you could possibly ask for from a wrestling game. When combined with this game's excellent gameplay, all these match types are incredibly fun to play. I've never been a big fan of last man standing matches in WWE games, but I can play them in WWE 13 and have fun because they actually feel like a real challenge. Overall, everything about WWE 13's gameplay is awesome. Matches are super chaotic and unpredictable, which is great if you just want to play a wrestling game without having to worry about realism or anything like that slowing you down. WWE 13 is definitely the game to play. Sure, the game's not perfect, there's definitely bugs and glitches, but the bugs weren't 2K20 bad. Instead, they actually improved the game and made it more fun, as weird as that sounds. I mean, look at this. Sheamus just died. Later in the same match, me and my nephew did a spot that was so devastating and brutal that it actually broke the camera for the rest of this match. This game is awesome. Another thing that I feel made this game so great was the soundtrack. WWE 13 didn't really have a soundtrack like any of the SmackDown vs. Raw games had, as it more or less just used wrestlers' themes instead. But if you played WWE 13 as a kid, you know this soundtrack was just full of bangers. David Otunga's run in the WWE post-Nexus was kind of forgettable, but this game would have you thinking he was a top guy just because of how frequently his theme would play. I'm not gonna lie and say his theme wasn't a banger though. Not only that, but the theme song for this game was even better. Everyone who played this game growing up forever has Revolution by Pennywise ingrained into their memory. So while this is a relatively small thing, I still wanted to bring it up as the soundtrack definitely made this game more iconic than it already was. As good as the rest of this game is though, the best part of this whole thing is by far the Attitude Era mode, which let you relive all the iconic moments from that era, starting in 1997 and ending in 2001 when WWE bought WCW. This was and still is such a great mode. As someone who was born after the Attitude Era, playing this mode as a kid was just so cool because I got to play through matches I wasn't alive to watch. This mode was also the first time they'd ever done anything like this, letting you relive real-life matches from WWE's history. I mean, yeah, Legends of WrestleMania did it first, but that game sucked, so who the hell cares? WWE 13 perfected this formula, though, by recreating everything that happened in these matches with animated cutscenes. They even animated the debut of Cactus Jack in WWE, which even today is so cool to watch in game. The Attitude Era mode felt like one long campaign spanning multiple chapters, focusing on different superstars and stories like the rise of DX, the Brothers of Destruction, Mankind, The Rock. Everything that happened in the Attitude Era was fully recreated in this game, and it was done wonderfully. As you progress through the mode, you'd even see a full timeline comparing the ratings of Monday Nitro and Monday Night Raw, spanning from 1995 to 2001. If you haven't played the Attitude Era mode in WWE 13, I highly suggest you do so because it's a lot of fun. Even if you've never been a big fan of 2K showcases, I can guarantee you that this mode is more fun than any 2K showcase you've ever played. It's certainly more fun than 2K24's showcase. I think this mode is what made the game as memorable as it was though. The fact that this entire game was centered around the Attitude Era was awesome because it elevated it to higher heights. When you look at the cover, you immediately think of the Attitude Era. When you load up the game and look at the menu, again, you think of the Attitude Era. This game as a whole whole just felt like one big love letter to that era of wrestling, and that's why I love this game so much. With all that being said, WWE 13 is a great wrestling game. It was great when it came out in 2012, and it's still great even in 2024. It's hard to think that this game is 12 years old now. The Attitude Era mode is still really fun to play through. The gameplay is just straight up awesome, and yeah, well, there's bugs and glitches here and there. As I said earlier in the video, they don't ruin the game, they just make it more fun. The only problem with this game is the fact that it's not backwards compatible with the Series X, which really sucks because I'd love to be able to play this game on current gen. Or they could pull a Final Fantasy 13 and just give us WWE 13 2 instead.